Hi everyone, Dead Battery here, and thank you for joining me on my channel. So today's video is going to be on a Nintendo Switch, but it's going to be on two Nintendo Switches, one being the original and the other being the Nintendo Switch Lite. I did find both of these at my local store. They were 8,800 yen each, and both of them stated that they had a broken screen. The price for what I bought them for and the price of the screens after I looked it up seemed like a pretty good price range, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity to at least show everyone out there how to do it if you haven't done one before, or if your Nintendo Switch gets a busted screen, then you'll know how to do it. I don't know what I'm going to do with these, but I thought it would be a good video to show everybody how to do this regardless of which Switch you had. So let's open up these Nintendo Switches and let's swap some screens. Here is both the Nintendo Switches. The original Nintendo Switch, as you can see when I plug it in, a little bit of light shows up in the corner, but past that there is no screen. And then the Switch Lite, it's really hard to see, but it kind of gets lines across the middle of it. I did buy both screens at ifixit. To take apart the Nintendo Switch, there's one screw at the bottom and there's two screws at the top, and then the middle screw on both the sides. After you remove those, there's one more screw underneath the kickstand. All of them are Phillips heads. Then there are four more screws that hold the rest of the back cover on that are Y screws. Make sure you use the correct bit so you don't strip them. There is nothing else holding the back cover down, so you can just take that off. It is a little dusty, so I'll have to clean it. Next, you want to take off the SD card holder. There's just one screw holding that in place. Next is the metal plate on the back, and there are 6 screws that hold it into place, so just keep track of those. And as always, disconnect the battery just to prevent anything from shorting out or anything happening. So to take it all apart, it's just the heat sink. At the top here is the game card reader. Then you can take the fan out. So from what I could tell with the Nintendo Switch is you don't have to take everything out. However, because you do need to use a heat source, a heat gun, or whatever your preference is, it said to be really careful. So I thought that it wouldn't be that hard to take all the components out. So I'm just gonna take everything out so I don't risk burning anything. I did attempt to use this clamp that I bought at ifixit for phones and phone screens, or just anything that it would stick to help pull it apart. And as I expected, the one side just didn't have enough of a flat surface for a section. So luckily I have 2 other suction cups that I got at ifixit as well that will hopefully serve the purpose they're needed for. Now I have my hot air rework station. I'm just kind of going around the edge. Once I had a little bit of lift, I was able to get my pry tool underneath to slide along, and I continued very slowly to make sure I didn't break this front screen, but that I could get it all off. I'm also very interested to know how somebody put that much of an indent on it on the main screen and not on the front screen. I'm assuming because it's flexible plastic, but you can see it in the video a little bit how much that indent is, but you can't see any kind of imperfection on the Nintendo Switch's main screen. I started to remove these screws at the top. I thought they held the screen in place. However, when it shifted a little bit, I realized there's nothing holding the screen down. It just sits in there. These screws didn't need to be removed. So, for everyone out there, if you're doing this, you don't need to remove these 4 screws around the outside. Make sure when you're putting the screen down that you do get the ribbons through the correct holes. So now we're going to do the peel off and then just put the screen back over top. Now that the front screen is back in place, I can flip it back over and then put everything back in it. Make sure when you're doing this that you get all the correct screws in the right spots, as well as remember to attach all the ribbons, because one misplaced ribbon can be the deciding factor of it turning on again properly. Now I can reattach the battery cable, and I am going to test it before I put all the back panels on. As you can see, we have a working screen. Unfortunately, I can't test it any farther than that because it is completely dead. Now on to the Nintendo Switch Lite. This one's a little different. There are 2 screws on the bottom, 2 screws at the top, and they are all Phillips head. And then there are 4 screws on the back that are your Y shaped. Once the screws were out, just get a pry tool and be careful and go around the edge. You will feel it start to release. There is no ribbons attached to the back, so you don't have to worry about it, but it's just more getting it past all the components that do stick out of the plastic, like your headphone jack and your charge port. There are 4 screws that hold this metal plate in place. Definitely pay attention to them because they are different sizes. One of them is larger than the other 3. The battery terminal is also a little different. You have to remove this cable, and underneath is where the battery terminal is. This one basically comes apart like the original Nintendo Switch. It has the heatsink, it has the fan, it has the game cartridge holder. However, because the controllers are on the inside, you do have to remove the Z, L, and ZR and the left and right buttons. They're at the top. You have to remove both speakers and both motherboards so that you can get down to the rest of it. That means that you're gonna have a lot more screws and a lot more components to pay attention to. I would definitely make a map if you haven't taken one of these apart before. After everything's out of place, you're just left with this bottom part and the battery. And there are 4 more screws that hold this all down, and one of them is larger, so make sure you know where that one longer one goes. Now, ifixit shows to flip it back around, heat up the outside, and take that front screen off. I'm not too sure why they suggest that. Nothing against ifixit, and maybe somebody can tell me, let me know in the comments, but the screen is right here. So I just have to lift it out of place. Now, I did have a little bit of a mess up, and maybe this is why. I did lift the screen out, but it didn't come all the way off because it is stuck to the other side. I just heated it up, got the pry tool underneath of it, and got the rest of the screen out. Maybe they're having you take the front off so you don't damage the screen, but it's a screen replacement, which generally means that the screen is already broken, so you can't break it any more than it already is. Let me know in the comments which way you would have gone. Would you have taken off the back, done it that way, or would you have flipped it over, taken off all the front screen, and then taken the screen out like we did with the original Nintendo Switch? I did get some sticky stuff stuck to the front screen, so I had to clean it up, and then I ended up with fingerprints on it. So maybe that's the reason why they wanted you to remove that front screen, so that you could put it down cleanly without accidentally getting anything on top of it. However, it's like other handhelds where that front screen you don't take off and you just have to be really cautious. Unfortunately, I was not cautious enough. I am going to continue to put it back together because I know that I can remove that front panel later on. Make sure your ribbons are pulled through that first part that goes down with the battery attached to it, but once you have that in place and all the screws back in the correct spot, you can just work in reverse and get everything back into place. It's basically the back panel, all the buttons go back into place. Then you have your motherboard, the game cartridge holder, the fan, the left motherboard, speaker, the heat sink. I am putting this one fully back together before I test it. So now we can plug this one in, and from what I can see, the lines are gone. Just have to get this one on the charger and run some tests to make sure that it is fully working. So I do think that the screen replacement was fairly easy. So I don't think either of them was more difficult than the other one. And I think it's kind of hard to decide which one was easier and which one was harder. The original Nintendo Switch, you had to take the front off and you couldn't come at it through the back. And technically you didn't have to take everything out, but it was more of a precaution to make sure everything stayed good. Then you had the Switch Lite where everything was on the inside and you did have to take everything out, and there were a lot of more parts and a lot more screws, but you could remove the screen from the inside. Even though, like I mentioned, the directions did say take that front screen off. So I'm not too sure how I felt about either of them. I want to say the original one was easier for me because less components. So hopefully this helps some of you decide if you do want to do a screen replacement. Hopefully this will give you confidence to fix it instead of spending $200 to $300 more to buy a brand new Switch. Let me know in the comments if this is something you did, and if so, which one did you like better, or which one did you feel was easier in your point of view. As always, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, share with your friends, and I'll see you again in 2 weeks. Bye!